It looks like since I sent you my link, it put you under my name, Ava. So, but you're here in presence. So, yeah, whenever you're ready to start the meeting.
Okay, yeah. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead and get ready. And what's wrong with your email that you didn't get it? Everyone else seemed to get it okay.
I don't know. I never got it. I have no idea.
Okay.
You click on the junk mail list.
Okay. I call this meeting of the Youth Commission to order at 6:33 p.m. Can I get a roll call, please?
Hold on just a second. Let me start the meeting here on. Okay, and we'll do roll call here. Okay, so Chairperson Schaefer.
Present.
Chairperson, Vice Chair Lee.
Present.
Commissioner Gray.
Present.
Commissioner Wasink.
Present.
Commissioner Au.
Present.
Commissioner Mazzano. I got an email from her saying that she will be late. Commissioner Oplaka.
Present.
Commissioner Chang.
Present.
Commissioner Ringel.
Present.
Commissioner Cherry.
Present.
Commissioner Fukushima. And I received an email from her saying that she will not be able to make the meeting. And Commissioner Searing. Commissioner Searing?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. So I think you were muted. Okay, so you're here. Okay, that does it for roll call.
All right. And can I get a volunteer for the salute to the flag?
I volunteer.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Gray.
Okay, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Place your right hand over your heart and please recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag
of the United States
of America
and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Justice
You
for
may
all.
be seated.
I just wanted to say that Adult Commissioner Stover's here now. I came in right at the end of roll call.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to, in roll call, I forgot to mention Commissioner Gamut.
Here.
And Commissioner Bubenacek will probably be late. I'm sorry about that.
And Commissioner Mazzano is here.
Oh, and she just joined. Okay, she did say she was going to be late. Thank you. And moving on.
All right. Can I get a motion for to approve the order of the agenda?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Gray.
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Lee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
At the last meeting, I was informed that we have to, since it's a Zoom meeting, that we need to do a roll call vote. So I'll just go down the list, and if it's either aye or nay, or yes or no. Okay, so can we have that again, the motion?
Sure. Can I get a motion to approve the order of the agenda?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Gray.
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Lee. And then.
Okay, then I'll do the roll call vote. Chairperson Schaefer.
Aye.
Chairperson, Vice Chair Lee.
Aye.
Commissioner Gray.
Aye.
Commissioner Wasink.
Aye.
Commissioner Au.
Aye.
Commissioner Mazzano.
Aye.
Commissioner Oplaka.
Aye.
Commissioner Lee Chang.
Aye.
Commissioner Ringel.
Aye.
Commissioner Cherry.
Aye.
And Commissioner Searing.
Aye.
And Adult Member Gamut.
Aye.
Adult Member Stover.
Aye.
And Adult Member Bubenacek.
Aye.
Okay. The ayes have it. There's no nays, so it motion passed.
All right, moving on. Blue folder items, additional backup materials. Blue folder items are additional backup material for administrative reports and/or public comments received after the printing and distribution of the agenda packet for receive and file. Seeing none, moving on. Consent calendar. Business items, except those formally noticed for public hearing or discussion, are assigned to the consent calendar. The commission members may request that any consent calendar items be removed, discussed, and acted upon separately. Items removed from the consent calendar will be taken up under the excluded consent calendar section below. Those items remaining on the consent calendar will be approved in one motion following oral communications. Seeing none, moving on. Can I get,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yes? Did you say something?
No, I'm sorry. You can go ahead.
Oh, okay, thank you. And then can I get a motion to approve the affidavit of posting and the approval of minutes?
Then we'll go down the list again. Chairperson Schaefer?
I need a motion.
Motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Motion by Commissioner Lee Chang,
Second.
second by Commissioner Wassing.
And here we'll do the vote. Chairperson Schaefer?
Aye.
Vice Chair Lee?
Aye.
Commissioner Gray?
Aye.
Commissioner Au?
Aye.
Commissioner Manzano?
Aye.
Commissioner Ablaka?
Aye.
Commissioner Lee Chang?
Aye.
Commissioner Ringel?
Aye.
Commissioner Cherry?
Aye.
Commissioner Searing?
Aye.
Adult Member Gamut?
Aye.
Adult Member Stover?
Aye.
And Adult Member Bubenacek.
Aye.
Okay?
Okay, moving on. Excluded consent calendar items, seeing none, moving on. Public participation on non-agenda items. This section is intended to provide members of the public with the opportunity to comment on any subject that does not appear on this agenda for action. This section is limited to 30 minutes. Each speaker will be afforded 3 minutes to address the commission. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once. Written requests, if any, will be considered first under this section. Seeing none, moving on. And then public participation on non-agenda items. Seeing none, moving on. Items continued from previous agendas. Seeing none, moving on. Items for discussion prior to action. We have a presentation and discussion regarding the Aes Power Plant. Staff recommends that the Youth Commission receive and file the presentation by Deirdre Brand and Jim Light regarding the Aes Power Plant.
So we need a motion to accept this.
Okay, can I get a motion to receive and file this presentation?
Motion.
I
Who
think
was
multiple
that?
people spoke. Can I get a motion to receive and file the presentation?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Au,
Second.
second by Commissioner Oplatka.
Okay, and here we go, another vote again, sorry. Chairperson Schaefer,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lee,
Aye.
Commissioner Gray,
Aye.
Commissioner Wassink,
Aye.
Commissioner Au,
Aye.
Commissioner Manzano,
Aye.
Commissioner Ablaka,
Aye.
Commissioner Lee Chang,
Aye.
Commissioner Ringel,
Aye.
Commissioner Cherry,
Aye.
Commissioner Searing,
Aye.
Adult Member Gamut,
Aye.
Adult Member Stover,
Aye.
and Adult Member Bubenacek.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, well, yeah, I'd like to welcome Jim Light, who's here on behalf of the South Bay Parkland Conservancy, and he'll be talking to us about the power plant.
Okay,
So,
thank
Jim?
you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
welcome, and yeah, it's your show now. Take it away.
Thanks for having me here tonight. I appreciate your interest in the power plant. I apologize, I do not have a briefing here. Deirdre Brand was expecting to be here, but she has a medical contingency, so she could not make it. She may be joining us later. So I'm gonna talk through the history and then go through some of the recent activities and what's going on with the power plant site, and then open it up for you to ask me any questions you'd like. So first off, my name is Jim Light. I'm the current president of the South Bay Parkland Conservancy. I've been with the Conservancy since 2004. And actually now Mayor Bill Brand and I, back in 2008, started tracking the power plant because it was starting to come up as an issue, because our power plant is one of the few remaining power plants that uses ocean water for cooling. So it draws water in from the ocean, and then it uses it to cool the turbines as they're spinning up to produce power. And that, so as it goes through that, it sucks in billions of larvae of young fish, young protozoans and things like that, and destroys them in the heating process. And then it puts out water that is hotter than the surrounding temperature. So it has a huge environmental impact. The water quality boards were starting to look at it in 2008. And what Bill Brand and I found as we started looking at this was this plant is no longer required. When we started tracking the history, whatever the California Energy Commission had online, this plant was running at about 15% of annual capacity. But as you got closer to 2008, and then as we tracked it through 2010 and the 20 teens, it was actually running below 5%. And some years it was below 1% of capacity it was running. There's a reason for that. It's an old plant. And that will take me into the history. But first off, it's an old plant. It's inefficient. It takes about 24 hours to power up, between 12 and 24 hours. If they're having a good day, it's 12 hours. A bad day, it takes 24 hours. Modern plants can spin up in 10 minutes. So you're burning natural gas for 12 to 24 hours just to get that thing heated up and running efficiently so they can put it online. So you're wasting all that natural gas. You're killing all the microorganisms from the ocean, and you're spewing out pollution in our community while it's doing that. So that's why Bill and I were concerned back in 2008 and started tracking this and trying to lobby to shut the thing down. And South Bay Parkland Conservancy joined in that because it's also one of the biggest opportunities to expand parkland in the South Bay. So if you look at this site, if you go back to the time before, the Spaniards settled in the area, it was a Chewinga site. There was a salt lake there. You can go to the front of the power plant. It's got a state monument to it. You won't find it anymore. You'll find remnants of it if you look over the back of the power plant, but the salt lake as it once was is gone. The Chewinga Indians used it for getting salt, and then they would trade that for other goods with other Indians throughout the LA basin. And then as the Spaniards came in, they started using it. It was the main salt source for the city of LA as it started coming to fruition. In fact, the first road between what's now Redondo and Los Angeles was called the Great Salt Road because it was mainly used to take salt back to the city there. So come to be about the turn of about the late 1800s, early 1900s, Edison, not Southern California Edison, the original Edison, put a power plant on the southwest edge or northwest edge of that salt lake. And that was the first power plant in Redondo Beach. It became quickly outdated and actually went idle. In about 2030, it was totally idle, and the city was looking what to do with the site. They came up with the idea of making a recreational site, with the salt lake being a recreational amenity where you could row boats on it and things like that. Well, fast forward to the end of World War II, nothing happened with it. Fast forward to the end of World War II, people started moving into the area heavily, and so they decided they needed a new power plant there. Wetlands were the least valued property in the area at the time, and so they filled in the late 40s. They filled in the salt lake and started building the first units, which are at the north end of the property. So if you go north of the Wailing Wall, there's units that are no longer online. Those were built in the late 1940s, early 1950s. And then in the 60s, they added the last units, which are the ones running today. Those came online in about 1968. In 1998, they started deregulating the power. So it was going from a government, semi-government run organization to they were putting it out to commercial entities. And in 1998, AES, the current owner of the property, bought the property from Southern California Edison. So they ran the plant for a while. And as we got to 2008, that's when they started challenging, the state started looking at whether they wanted to power down these once-through cooling plants. So the end of the plant was obvious. They couldn't run with that. So AES actually started to apply to build a new power plant on the site with a smaller footprint. And that would be an air-cooled power plant, so it wouldn't use that ocean water cooling. The city resisted that. South Bay Parkland Conservancy resisted that. In parallel, the state ran a study for, we are a park poor area, and they ran a study for what is the best way to increase parkland in the South Bay. And they came up with the AES site as the likely spot. So that is when South Bay Parkland Conservancy came on heavily to fight a new power plant there. As they went through their application, part of it has to go through the California Coastal Commission because it's west of Pacific Coast Highway. It's part of the coastal zone. When they looked at the application, they found that actually some of the old Salt Lake was starting to come back on the east side of the power plant. You can see that today. If you go to what's called Green Street, the Green Street commercial development there, they have an upper parking lot. And you can look down where they used to have oil tanks. You can see water has percolated up through the bottom of those and has reestablished the wetlands in the area. And South Bay Parkland Conservancy worked with the Audubon Society. To date, we've documented over 130 species of birds that use that site. And it's heavily used during the winter now. It's part of the Great Pacific Flyway. A lot of waterfowl use that as an area to either rest and winter over, or there's actually some that are breeding down there. There's some year-round residents. The black-capped night heron is there year-round. And what happened was, as we were starting to document this, the Coastal Commission deemed that there was about 6 acres of active wetlands on the site, and they prohibited AES or any future developer from doing anything that would impact that. We saw that some of the tank areas were going dry, and we could hear pumps running, so we approached the city. The city alerted the Coastal Commission. Turns out AES was starting to turn on dewatering pumps to dry those out so that you wouldn't have those wetlands there. And they got a cease and desist order from the Coastal Commission, and they did, and the water came back. And so if you go up there today and look over that, you can find all sorts of species of birds. This is probably January, February is the biggest time of the year, but they're starting to come back now, and you'll be able to see all sorts of birds out there. So that threw a little bit of a ringer in their plans. They were still going to press forward. They thought they could maybe build the plant away from where the wetlands was going to be. But we didn't want to wait for that. So a lot of the residents got together and put forward a measure called Measure A that would force the power plant to shut down by 2020. That didn't pass because AES ran about a $1 million campaign against it, saying we would suffer blackouts and they would sue the city into oblivion if the city passed the measure. They said the power was required, and that's not actually true. This power plant does not deliver directly to Redondo Beach. You see those big power lines going up 190th Street. It delivers to a link-up point called La Fresia. It's near the 405. And then it gets distributed to the grid. It never goes directly to Redondo Beach. So they misled the residents there. And then right after Measure A barely lost, they turned around and issued a Measure B, where they said, oh, well, we found out power wasn't required at the site. So now we want to put a ton of residential there, and we're not going to guarantee any parkland when we do that. So they put in another big campaign. They actually lost that one. The residents saw that AES was being disingenuous there, so they voted that down. And that starts to get us into the last few years. So what happened, the plant was supposed to shut down in 2020 to comply with the new once-through cooling regulations. But then 2 years ago, we suffered the big blackouts. And that put some emergency orders out. They started extending some of those last once-through cooling plants. And All the other, there were 3 others that were on the docket to be shut down in 2020, the last remaining ones, along with AES Redondo. And they all got extended for 3 years. Redondo's got extended for 1 year, but they just came back just last month and they approved running it through 2023 now. And that's because of the power outages that California saw a few years ago. We believe that's a farce. In our section of the grid, our section of the grid is called the West LA Basin. There is excess power in every contingency that the Public Utilities Commission put forward. So for our area, there is no need for any power from any one-stroke cooling plant. We have sufficient power. However, there are a few power plants up north of us, or sections of the grid up north with us, that when you pile contingency on contingency, you drop some transmission line, some power plants offline, some of the out-of-state power can't get here, and you have a heat event, a multi-state heat event, then there's some situations where you could get into power outages in those areas. And so they chose, Governor Newsom issued an emergency order to keep every power plant they could running. And so that's where we're at today. They just voted to run it for another 2 years. In the meantime, while that was going on, AES sold their property to a developer. And the developer right now has the only thing that the zoning allows on that site without any conditional uses is Parkland. Parkland was added in 2008. And the only other use that's a conditional use is public utility. And that requires the city council to agree with it. Although if the state mandated it, the city would have a tough time pushing back. So, if you hear people saying, oh, they've got zoning to put up residential units or commercial, malls or anything like that, that's not true. They do not have the zoning for that. They would have to go right now under our city charter, they would have to get a vote of the people to do anything other than Parkland or public utility on that site. There is some state laws going on that may force the city's hand with respect to housing. However, so far, none of those mandate that the city would have to convert non-residential sites to higher density residential sites. So there's nothing that right now that would force the city to approve residential on that site. So that's where we're at today. There was a gentleman named Leo Postelnikov who heads up a bunch of developers, different investment firms that bought that on contingencies. Right now, the only part they actually own are the old C-Lab, which is one of the reasons C-Lab shut down. We don't know. We know that he's put that out to be an office space, and since that's already that kind of building, he could do that. But anything on the AES site itself, he has no authority to do. He originally signed a document with the city that said he would convert 20 acres. He would sell 20 acres at a reduced rate to the city for parkland and to include that 6 acres of wetland that was required by the Coastal Commission. He has since reneged on that. And so what happened there, what the impact of that was, is the city got about $5.2 million in grants to start doing planning and acquisition for a park on that site and also on the up Redondo Street, 190th Street, underneath the power lines just east of the power plant. Because he reneged on that deal, the $4.6 million of those grants got pulled back. But we still have about $500K in planning grants that we can use for planning for parkland and wetlands on that site and on the Redondo site. And we're hopeful the city will soon be able to start doing stuff under the power lines along Redondo, even though technically there's still power going through those lines. One other thing I left out was Southern California Edison did do a study that if the power plant, when the power plant shuts down, those heavy duty lines going up 190th, they would pull out. So those ugly things that, if you're coming down 190th and kind of dominate the view would be going away. And then that whole strip of land can be reused in the future. SBPC's position is that should be a green belt to the sea. but we'll see. We'll see. That's a lot of real estate to put into, just one giant green belt. But that's our vision, is to put a green belt to the sea, connect it with the green belt from Hermosa and Manhattan Beach, and then run it right to the new wetlands or the restored wetlands that would be on the AES site in the future. So that's the formal part of, talking through this with you. Any questions you might have?
We have a question from Vice Commissioner Lee.
Okay, so you said that the state commission just passed the new zoning or requiring the power plant operate through 2023, right?
Yes.
Okay, does the city have any way to potentially find a way to have the power plant removed regardless of what that order is? Is there any legal recourse or something like that?
So the city has filed a lawsuit that the environmental analysis was not sufficient. They tried to get an injunction that would make the power plant shut down until they decide that. However, the judge did not pass that injunction because of the emergency order. So right now, I think we're stuck with it. I think they can drag it out legally for the amount of time they've got till December 31st, 2023. There is one more hearing that just came. We just saw the staff report on that. They have to get a discharge permit. They have to extend their discharge permit to be, both intake and discharge permit, to be able to take water from the ocean and pump it back out. They do have some mitigations in there for pollution. They have to monitor it for pollution, but frankly, I don't see anything. The city can resist that. Residents can resist that. The approval of that order to extend. But frankly, with everything else lined up in the politics, I don't see that happening.
We have a question from Commissioner Ringel.
Hi, thank you for that presentation. One thing I was wondering is, I guess, how can students in high school or middle school get involved or really do anything about this?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think, to the extent you can, I think it would be good for some of you to reach out to Audubon Society and maybe attend with them when they're up there doing their counting of the birds and the species identification. I went up there and I took my long lens from my camera, so I documented with photographs. I'm not as good as identifying birds as they are, so I left that up to them. They do have a database that they can give you access to see all the different kinds of birds, and it will tell you on each visit that they were sampling what kind of birds they saw on both sites, the Redondo site and the power plant site. I think you can continue to, just like I can, you can attend city council meetings under non-agenda items and push for the type of park you'd like to see down there. And especially as the city comes to an agreement with SCE to put a park under the power lines, you can weigh in on that. I will caution, though, that the money the city is getting is for restoration of habitat, because that's the kind of money that's out there. So if you're thinking soccer field or something like that, it would have to be a portion of it if there's enough room on it. But the dollars the city is getting right now are for restoration of native habitat. You can also, as that breaks ground, SBPC will be working with the city to do planning and maintenance. And, we get a lot of students from Redondo, thanks to Michael and his ambassadorship with the high school. So we had about 40 kids at Wilderness Park 2 weekends ago, and we'll be up there on Sunday again doing maintenance and planning. We're going to start the bluffs this Saturday.
Okay, another question from Vice Commissioner Lee.
Before we do that, you do have an environmental club, I believe, at the school. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
I think they could develop an official position and submit that to the city, and that could, and to SBPC, and voices like that actually help carry weight with state agencies. And so, you have a very powerful voice. It's just how you want to exercise it. And if you can get environmental club or individual students coming up and testifying, writing letters, giving a position on what you'd like to see, that is very powerful, because I think everybody in position of power realizes you guys are the next generation, and that's what we're doing all this for. This isn't for old guys like me. This is for you guys. So sorry about that.
All right. So if I remember correctly, you said AES doesn't own the property anymore. They sold it to a developer. Is the developer operating that plant when the state government wants it to? Does it have the ability or the knowledge to do that?
So we do not get to see the whole agreement because it's a private agreement between two parties. We don't know all the details of it. We do know that AES is paying Leo Pistilnikov and his investment partners to continue to run the plant. So AES is running the plant. Pistilnikov doesn't. He could apply to the state to shut it down, but I doubt that he'd have any traction with that. But I know he's making millions off of just letting the power plant run. So I don't see him pushing back and saying, stop the plant. I want to start building now. Because as soon as they shut down the plant, he's spending money, not making money.
All right, Commissioner Stover.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Light, for your very informative presentation. My question is, how confident are you that the power plant will stop running in 2023? Because, as you mentioned, and as I followed in the news, we thought it was going to be shut down in 2020, and here we are. So how confident are you that it will cease operations in December of 2023? And are there things that these young people and old folks like us should be looking out for that may happen to prevent that ceasing of the use of the power plant from happening?
Yeah, so, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen in 2023. Hopefully by then, the big problem is right now, the peak of energy use is about between 4, I don't know this precisely, but somewhere between 4 and 9 p.m. And that is when solar is starting to wind down and the winds are starting to calm down. So they don't have those as a power source. So they need that natural gas power to help bring it up. Now, what the state has started doing is investing in battery storage, which the AES site at Alamitos has a 100 megawatt battery storage plant that can sit there and absorbs energy during the day, tops off the batteries, and then as those renewable sources like solar and wind start to die down, they start feeding back into the grid. Those are actually much faster to build than traditional power plants. And so, what we're hoping is that the emergency gets the state focused on producing those. One of the negative things we've seen, and students should be as concerned about this, is Newsom has started diverting money from those programs to foresting, to clear cutting, and then burning forests as they call it biomass to produce power. And that's even worse than running AES Redondo because number one, there's a lot of carbon sequestered in forests. Even forests that have been burnt by forest fires still sequester a lot of carbon. So when they go clear cut those areas, they release a lot of carbon that's been sequestered for hundreds of years. And it's a horrible thing to do to the environment. And then on top of it, the wood burns dirtier than coal. So it's far more polluting and impactful than running the AES site. But I think that the things residents, students, everybody can do is keep pressure on our state representatives, Miritsuchi and Ben Allen, to make sure that this power plant does not get extended. And to, as you're voting, your parents should be, and as you get to voting age, look for people who are going to, make that an issue for them to answer to in their campaigns. We like to pull every lever we can. We try to get our state representatives on our side. We help document the pollutants because their staff aren't experts in this. So we do research, we help document the pollutants and the impacts. And we just keep that at the forefront and keep pressure on. I'm hopeful by 2023, we will have a path forward that does not rely on AES Redondo. I mean, the plant is between 50 and 70 years old. The other thing, this plant, it's so old that actually when it's hottest out and they need the power from it, it can't produce at full power. Because it's so old, it's too hot for it to run at full power. So they have to throttle back power production. And they have had maintenance problems every time there's a flex alert, which is why this power plant's still up, is for flex alerts. And every time they've had problems where at least one of the units can't come up to power. So I think some of it, the power plant's going to fall in on itself one day. But continued pressure by all of us on our state representatives and who we vote in is going to tell the future here.
Commissioner Cherry?
Yeah, I just had a question about hopefully when the power plant does get removed, how the land will be used. I have a question, will the land be able to, either the profit from the land or the land itself, be able to be given to indigenous tribes from the LA area?
So that's a good question. I haven't seen any propensity to give land back to the indigenous tribes. I mean, this has been, a long time this way. So it was never it was never an established village. It was a seasonal use to get salt out, and then they'd move back. The main dwelling area in our area is actually the top of, if you know where Rat Beach is and Malaga Cove, that the bluff right above there on top of that cliff, that was the biggest village in our area, and that's private property now. So I don't see them giving it back. We have talked with the Chewinga representatives. They were supportive of restoring the wetlands at the site. So we do want to be respectful of what they'd like to be at the site. And I am sure that because there were cultural resources in that area years ago when they were first digging the dunes up for the power plant that's there today, there will be representatives watching for archaeological and anthropological signs, as they're reworking remediating the soil and turning it back into other uses. Now, as far as what gets in there, look, somebody it's private property, somebody bought it. So it's going to have to be a cooperative deal to get Parkland out of that. It's not city property, and I doubt we're going to take it over by eminent domain. So there's going to have to be a deal with the property owner. We do know those 6 acres plus a buffer zone have to be wetlands, and so we do have some leverage there. The other leverage we have is our charter that requires a vote of the people for a zoning change. So they have to work with the city and the residents to get something. And so we're going to have to balance something, on there. A 50-50 split is probably, what I would expect to get out of that. 50% parkland, 50% some type of development. They will likely want some residential because that's how they make most of their money. And then some commercial mixed in with it that's my crystal ball on what they if they could, they'd like to put all residential there, but I don't think residents would buy that. And as you get to voting age, you would get to, and you stay in Redondo, you would get to vote on that in the future. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. But I was also, I kind of just, if it's not being, talked about in the discussions on what will happen after, is there any ways that I can, bring it forward? Because, or is it just going to be used for residential? Is it already set out for what it's going to be used for?
Well, it takes the property owner has to come forward with what they want to do. The city can't say, here's what we want you to do. They've got to come forward, and then you start the bargaining process. And that's when the public process will start, because there is a vote required. You can certainly reach out. I don't know if he'd respond. His name is Leo Pistolnikov. You can look him up and find his contact information. You can email him and see if he'll respond to you. I met with him very early on before he closed the deal, and he sounded very promising. And, he came forward with that 50% 20 acres, which is a little under 50%, selling it to the city at the reduced rate. And so everything looked like it was going good. And then it just, I think he was mad because the city wasn't going to support running the power plant for an extra 3 years. And that meant millions of dollars to him. So he reneged on his signed agreement.
Okay.
Commissioner Lee Chang.
Hi, Jim. Thanks for the presentation. I don't know what the Youth Commission's jurisdiction is over the schools in RBUSD, but do you think it'd be helpful if a petition possibly went around seeing if students are possibly what their opinions are on the power plant, and possibly, I don't know, present that to either our Assemblyman Almer Sachi or even Mayor Bill Brand?
Oh, yeah, I think anything like that will help. If you can get a good number of students, I think this commission could take a position on this and send a letter, and I would send it to everybody. I'd send it to Pastelnikov. I'd send it to Ben Allen. I'd send it to Al Maritsucci. I'd send it to the city. I'd send it to the CPUC, the CEC, anybody out there I would send it to. I mean, that's what we do. And never underestimate what a small group of people who are really incited to action can get done. I mean, Measure DD, the whole reason we get to vote on zoning in Redondo was started by basically 5 residents who were fed up with overdevelopment in the city. And that blossomed into a whole movement. Likewise, first it was Bill Brand and I saying the power plant wasn't necessary. Then all of a sudden, now it's got deadlines on its running. There was no deadline before. So never underestimate the power of what a small group of passionate people can get done if you stick with it. But it is a long haul. It's not a send a letter and you're done. You gotta keep at it. And I'm just very happy that you guys are taking on this issue and are interested in it. I think it speaks well for you guys following in our footsteps and taking the reins.
Commissioner Lee.
All right, so it sounds to me like there is fair opposition to the power plant at Redondo Beach. Everyone I ask about says they don't like it. So is the commission that decided to keep it there just basically ignoring what the city of Redondo Beach wants? And then if so, is there any sort of way, like a measure on the ballot that could overrule that decision?
So they did recognize that. If you listen to the hearing, they apologized to the people of Redondo, but they said it's a statewide emergency, and so they're doing what's right for the state, not necessarily what's right for the city of Redondo. I think if we keep putting pressure on politically, if that vote comes up again, hopefully we have enough momentum we can stop it. I forget your second. Is there a measure? So we could potentially put a ballot measure on, but it would have to be, because it's a statewide issue, it would be a statewide ballot measure. And that is a big undertaking. That takes millions of dollars to do. And I think, we'd have opposition from those areas that need our power. And it's kind of unfair. We're sitting here taking the pollution and pumping the power to other areas, but that's the way the power grid works. And what's really bad about Redondo, what we painted, why they only approved us for 1 year to begin with, is we are very unique in that we've got residential all around on all 4 sides of our power plant. And it's very tight to the borders of the power plant. No other once-through cooling plant has that. And then the other problem we have is just inland of the power plant is a huge hillside. And so even though they've got those high smokestacks, when you have a weather inversion, which creates the marine layer, that traps the pollutants underneath the inversion layer. And so what it basically means is all that pollution is going up to the height of the smokestacks, and then with the prevailing winds, it's blowing right into the neighborhoods that are east of the power plant. And that includes schools, includes some medical facilities like BCHD, Beach Cities Health District. It includes, preschools. So it's a perfect storm, and it's just a shame that the power for people up north is impacting, our community so badly, and more so than any other community. Our power plant is the most polluting and least efficient of any of the monster cooling plants that are still running.
So if I may, there's one thing you said earlier on in your answer that I want to address. So you said that the commission said they understood why we were upset about it, but they said it was the state order. Did they take into consideration, or do they realize that, like what you said, that this power plant is operating well below 5% of its potential capacity? And
they
providing
know
negligible power.
They know that. In fact, this is what's the farce about the whole thing. They're using these old power plants as what they call peaker plants. And they were never designed to be peaker plants. They were brought online and run hot and as at high capacity as you can, because they're more reliable and they're cleaner burning when you do that. When you bring them up and down, they're not as efficient. And like I said, they take 12 to 20, on a good day, it's 12 hours. On a bad day, it's 24 hours, and they're burning fuel the whole time. Meanwhile, the new plants that they're designing can come up in, 5 to 10 minutes, and they're up and online. So it's just a farce that we're relying on these 50 to 70-year-old units to provide power to our grid.
Commissioner Ringel?
I was wondering, like one time Michael told me that the Redondo Beach Education Foundation has a partnership with the AES. And I was just wondering, like, if you thought that was like wrong, or if you knew anything about that or had any opinions on it.
I have opinions on it. It's not my business. What we see with any large corporation that wants something from the community, they will throw money at the nonprofits in the community to try to get goodwill. If you remember the Center Cal mall that was going to go in down in the harbor, they were throwing money all over the nonprofits in Redondo, except those that opposed them. But they were throwing money around to everybody just to try to get their political backing. And so, AES is throwing money at the Education Foundation. It's going towards a good cause, but it is kind of a conflict because I think it's bad for the school population to be subjected to that plant running. And so it's kind of a conflict of interest. They're getting money from it, but they know it's bad for the kids. And so they're probably not going to take a position to oppose them because they'll lose that gravy train. SBPC and other nonprofits I belong to, like Building a Better Redondo, we just took an opposing view from the start. We would never compromise our position by taking money from them. But I know, you need money to run schools, and the money you're getting from the state is insufficient. So education foundations are the norm now, and it's tough to bite the hand that feeds you.
Commissioner Oplatka?
Yes, thank you for your presentation. I wanted to go back to the part that you said about the governor's mandate. You said that it was mandated based on the 2020 blackouts. Is there data that supports that our power plant was an important part of those blackouts? And if so, would taking our power plant down be harmful in future blackouts?
So, his mandate is a political one. He wanted not to get recalled, if you remember. The blackouts were very unpopular for him. What is amazing, I was in the Air Force, so I got stationed all around the U.S. I lived in Florida, launching space shuttles and other rockets down there for years. And we would get outages monthly just from lightning strikes. Especially during the summer, because every afternoon you get thunderstorms and power goes out, and it could be down for 4 or 5 hours. Here, the people panic if they don't have power for 2 hours. And in fact, I suffered more power outages here from maintenance activities than I did from, the heat wave that went through. So I think people here are a little spoiled because we don't have a lot of lightning storms. But for whatever reason, it's a big political thing, and he did not want to get recalled, so he issued that mandate. They have stacked So here's the politics of it. The PUC and the ISO, that's the independent organization that's supposed to make sure that we're getting our money's worth out of the power grid and we're not overspending. What they did to justify keeping Redondo open it's just shocking. I mean, when you look at the analysis they did, when they did the analysis of whether plants like Redondo were required and what the power demands were under these bad conditions with, multi-state heat waves and stuff like that, they started piling a whole bunch of contingencies on top of each other, which is what a good planning organization does. But they did all that, and then they put a 15% margin on top of that, saying, we may not have anticipated all this, so 15% more power is required because we may not have foreseen something. Well, even then, when you put that in, Redondo was not required. So what they did was they said, well, we had that 15% contingency when those power outages happened, so we probably should bump it up to 17%, and then Redondo is required. And that's how that you could see it happening as they did their calculations. At first, we're writing in going, look, your own analysis says Redondo is not required. And go, oh, wait a minute. And then they added that 2% contingency. And on top of that, when you analyze what has happened when we've had those flex alerts, those brownouts and blackouts, is they let multiple power plants be down for maintenance that they shouldn't have let happen. The outage that actually triggered all of this, the big outages, were because they mismanaged. They were selling power out of the state and they were throttling power coming into the state, and they were letting plants go offline for maintenance when they knew you could see it was going to be the hottest days of the summer. And so that was a lot of mismanagement. The other thing they can do, and they've started to do, is they can tell industry, you need to power down and cut your consumption, and actually give them price breaks on that. And they have that model, but they always put, they assume it's less than what they're going to get. And so they keep adding these contingencies on top of each other. But the one that put the icing on the cake that I just said, we're done, this is all political now, was when they added that 2% that made Redondo required. And so this was cooked. And I think it's a good lesson for you into what happens in real politics out there. You like to think at the national level, it's all dirty and nasty, but there's things going on at our level. For example, the biomass power, that is Newsom answering to the lobbyists who are for cutting, the timber industry. So there's pieces that go out to all these groups that fund campaigns, and that's what you got to be. That's why there's things like the Fair Political Practices Commission makes them publish who is funding their campaigns, and you can go and look at that and see who, if you think something doesn't make sense, you can look at who's donating to them, and then you start to see why. If you look at, I'm sure you've been tracking, there's been a lot of pressure for the city to add, cities across the state to add housing. And that's driven by a state senator, Wiener. And if you look at his campaign contributions, over half of them come from housing industry, the developer industry, and the housing investment industry. And so you start to see why people are voting the way they're voting. And that can help you plan how to counter, at least to bring it out and embarrass them as they're running their campaigns.
Thank you so much.
Commissioner Cherry?
You're on mute.
Sorry. I just wanted to say something real quick to Commissioner Lee Chang. He had a question about petitions and for signing that kids can sign at school. Today, actually, I signed a petition that I was given about trying to make Redondo 100% green energy. So I definitely think that there's a lot of change that kids are already wanting to happen. So just letting you know that there's hope.
Yeah, I'm very impressed by what I see out of kids from your school. Michael is our representative to the South Bay Parkland Conservancy for Redondo Union, and just the number of kids coming out and helping plant and to restore native habitat it's very impressive. And we've always had a very positive audience. We have, return. There's some of the kids are coming in multiple times. So I sense that your generation is much more attuned to the environment, and probably because of global warming and things like that. Actually, when I was a kid, we had our first Earth Day, and that's what got me interested in the environment. But then it kind of went into a lull for the next generations. And I'm glad to see that environmental sensitivity is coming back because, we are getting a bigger and bigger footprint on this planet, and whether the planet can sustain it or not is up to you, what you guys do in the future, and putting pressure on guys like me to do the right thing now.
Adult Commissioner Gamet.
Yeah, just a quick question. Once we do get to the point of tearing that power plant down, with the environmental studies that have happened, I mean, what's the realistic time frame for actually cleaning the soil of that site to return it back to its natural state? I'm assuming that it's got asbestos and mercury and other heavy metals in it from operating as a dirty, polluting plant for half a century.
Yeah, I don't know about the asbestos, but they are tracking the pollutants in the ground. They have wells all over the site, and so they know how much is in there and whether it's moving or not, and where it's at in the aquifers or in the soil column, and whether it's getting close to aquifers. I've been involved in remediation for launch pads where we dumped hydrazine and nitrogen tetroxide and all sorts of nasty stuff in the soil. And the actual remediation of the soil can happen very quickly. What we did up at Vandenberg was, we had a big incinerator, and we would put the dirt in the incinerator and burn the pollutants out. And it had a scrubber on it that tried to sequester all that, and that was treated as hazardous waste. But then the ground was remediated to the level of what we needed to use it for. And that's the key. There's different levels of remediation depending on the land use. So if you put a school there, it's going to be a lot more tighter than if you put a factory there, or if you put a mall there. So, and then residential's in between.
I was just thinking about getting ducks back on a saltwater lake.
Well, they're there now. I feel for them because I'm sure that is not the cleanest water in the world. And the quicker we can remediate that and get it back, the better. It can happen very quickly. I think the tear down of the plant would take longer than the remediation of the soil, but there's no two ways about it. We will impact that wetlands for some period of time. Hopefully we minimize it by doing it over a summer instead of a winter and we get something reestablished, by the winter. But that's all, guesswork down the road.
Okay.
It's a shame that we have to do that, but there's no way I would leave the current revetments. Where it's coming back, there used to be 5 oil tanks. This plant used to run off of oil, heavy oil, and it was converted to natural gas. And so they took the old oil tanks down, and the oil tanks had concrete retention basins. So sloped concrete down to a permeable base. And that's where it's at. It's the low point on the site, and that's where the water is coming back up. And it's amazing. If you go up there, you'll see, I don't know how they got back there, but there's water plants in there. There's reeds, there's willow trees that like water. And it's amazing to me that after that's been so industrialized for so many years, once they tore those oil tanks down, it started coming back.
So you can just literally just walk up to the roof parking and just look down and see it?
Yeah, and there is also, if they will let you up, the tech offices there next to the Green Street. If they will let you on the roof, you get an even better view. That's where Autobahn views it from. They got permission from the building to look at it from the very top roof there, and you get a very panoramic view. But you can see it from the Green Street parking lot if you walk towards the AES site, and you'll see birds out there.
Okay, thank you.
I actually had a question. First of all, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you coming here. You said that the salt lake it had disappeared when they built the power plant. Do you think if the power plant was removed, do you think it would ever regenerate fully?
So it didn't disappear. They filled it in. So they brought in soil from outside and they just poured it on top until it wasn't there anymore. This is a very unique structure. You don't find it many places in the world. A lot of people thought the Salt Lake was because the storm seas would come over and fill up the pond and then wouldn't, it just held it there. That's not true. It's a what they call a sequestered aquifer. There's a clay layer underneath. It's much higher. It's 15 feet higher than the sea level. So the waves never overtopped it. There's just some natural salt in that aquifer that when the water hits it, it becomes salty. And so it was a very unique lake to begin with. The other unique part of it was the Indians, when they were the Chewinga natives, when they were there, one of the reasons they picked that as a place to go get the salt into the summer was there was also freshwater springs that were there too. So right next to the Salt Lake was freshwater springs, so they could get fresh water and salt water while they were in camp there. And in fact, that was one of the first water sources for Redondo. They put a pump house near where the wetlands are today, a little bit to the east of that. But as Redondo started building up in the late 1800s and by the early 1900s, those springs started drying up because they were taking the freshwater aquifer down, and so they had to look for other sources of fresh water. But it's a very unique geological situation to have fresh water right next to a saltwater feature like that. In fact, there was a main pond, a smaller pond, and then a third pond. The third pond was all freshwater. So it had a freshwater aquifer going into it, and the other two were fed by salt.
Real quick,
I think if you dig down, the water would come back. We know that today. AES says it's because we're pumping fresh water in, and we do that to create, they call it a freshwater barrier. What happened was we started sucking too much water out of our aquifer, so salt water from the ocean was starting to infiltrate into the ground and make it into the water systems. So now they take recycled water from the Hyperion plant and they push it down in to create a freshwater barrier to keep the salt water from coming in. AES says that's why the wetlands is reestablishing. The Coastal Commission doesn't agree with that, and neither do our people who understand that kind of thing. The water is saltier than what they pump into the freshwater barrier system, and it should be outward of where that is. So I believe it's the natural functions. I think if we dug down, it would fill up again. But we have to look, you talked about remediation. It's likely going to be a linered pond because of that, because we will never get all the pollutants out. And so there's likely, I don't want to presuppose it, but my bet would be that we put a liner down there and reestablish it as natural as we can with that liner in to keep the pollutants out.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? All right. And Turtle, are you there?
Yes, I'm right here. I just want to say thanks, Jim. Everything you've talked with us about has been super informative. And I hope that you've inspired some of these guys to take it up and to follow through on or follow up with some kind of action, or maybe just to tell their friends about it, just to pass it on so that so more people are aware of what's really going on with the plant.
I appreciate the opportunity. I am very enthused with the youth of today. And, if you need me to talk about any topic at this or any other forum that you have, I will be glad to do it. Anything that pertains to the power plant, to restoring natural habitat, parks and recreation, the mission of South Bay Parkland Conservancy. Don't hesitate to reach out. My email address is jim.light1@verizon.net. That's my personal one. So you can email me anytime, and I would be glad to get engaged and just enthused to have folks from your generation pushing on folks like me to get things done. So really appreciate it, and I will do this anytime because you're the future.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Jim. Much appreciated.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
All righty. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, and then I've also had a request to possibly further discuss this among the commissioners. Would we have time for that this meeting, or would that be pushed to the next meeting?
What to discuss?
The power plant.
Yeah, you guys can discuss it. Absolutely.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, can we just go ahead then?
Yeah.
Yeah, just raise your hand so that Chairperson Schaefer can call on you.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Lee Chang.
Okay, so sorry, yeah, I was just discussing on the side with some of the other commissioners currently present. We were thinking, and I don't know about the opinions of the other commissioners that I haven't spoken to, if you all agree with the idea of getting a petition out, at least, I don't know what schools everyone's from, but at least at RUHS, because I feel like it'd be really powerful if the students at least spoke up to RBEF, since RBEF is a big part of RUHS and they have the partnership with AES. So if, there's 3,000 kids at RUHS, we could get at least, I want to say 500 signatures and pushing that towards to the RBEF president, who is a parent of a student attending RUHS. I feel like, that could have an effect.
Yeah, I saw the petition that Commissioner Cherry mentioned earlier that was floating around, and at least the guy that presented it to me, his whole paper was filled with signatures. So I think it is definitely possible to get a few hundred. Commissioner Gray?
Yes, to kind of further maybe getting it around school, we have SSH, and we also have those announcements, but I feel like we could use that to pass out petitions. And also we have the announcements, and maybe we can get more of it by using our newspaper and maybe kind of reaching out then and reaching out to them, so then maybe they could write about it. So then it's in people's minds, because I know that journalism is trying to find new topics to talk about, and I feel like maybe that could help.
Commissioner Oplaka?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with what Commissioner Gray just said. Another form of media would be RUTV. I know they're always looking for more content. To respond to this, Commissioner Lee Chang said, I'm not sure if directly attacking RBEF's relationship with AES is the smartest strategy to go about this, but I'm all for drafting a petition that shows our opposition to the power plant and AES. So here, any alternative ideas, I'm open for discussion.
Commissioner Ringel?
I feel like it might be good for us to target both, where obviously getting rid of the power plant is the main overall goal, but telling RBEF that them accepting money from a company whose morals do not really align with child development and furthering the future of our youth, that's a smaller victory, getting them to end their relationship there. And then that sort of can create momentum, where obviously the goal for us is to get rid of the power plant, but realistically, it's clear to AES that people in Redondo want the power plant to go, but the RBEF situation is just something that I feel like people don't really know about or talk about, and that petition might be able to actually tilt more change, if that makes sense.
Adult Commissioner Gamut?
Yeah, just wanted to remind you all that over here at the South Bay Adult School, we also have voting adults. So if you wanted to send surveys around for people who are eligible to vote, might be a good place.
Commissioner Lee Chang?
I mean, yeah, I understand. It's not, we're not going to go get pitchforks and torches and go after RBEF. I'm just saying, we should be bold with this. They're an education foundation that's supposed to help children and fund programs, which they're taking money from a corporation that does exactly the opposite. I understand, we don't really have to we don't really believe that most corporations have morals, but, it's a tiny town or somewhat. And I'm sure with a population so high at a single high school, their voices would definitely be heard. I mean, what other high school does RBUSD really have?
Commissioner Gray?
Kind of being able to go to the RBEF, I feel like maybe we should plan something as a commission because we do kind of have, I feel like we would be listened to more because we are the youth commission. So maybe we could get together and kind of just have a small group and talk about what we have been talking at our meetings and to kind of see if that could be translated into our schools. Because I do feel like, again, it is a part of our learning experience, like what Commissioner Lee Chang said, because this does involve us. And I feel like a lot of kids would very much benefit from having more of a natural wildlife area where they can go.
Adult Commissioner Stover?
I was going to say something similar to what Commissioner Gray said. I love that she brought that up. I was thinking the same thing. It might be a good strategy for the group of us or a smaller group of you to meet with the RBEF board and have a conversation about the concerns that you and I as well, I agree with where all of you are coming from, the concerns that we have about RBEF partnering with an organization that doesn't seem to support the goals of RBEF and educational, institutions at large. So that might be a good place to start, have a conversation and see if where they are coming from and if there's a resolution that we could come to together before going out and getting, petitions signed by people. Not that that's a bad idea to get more students involved. I think that's a really great idea. But having that conversation with RBEF on a smaller scale as a starting point might work well to get them to see your point of view, our point of view a little bit more clearly.
Commissioner Lee Chang?
Yeah, I love that idea, but I just wanted to add one more thing that, we shouldn't have too much problem getting permission to possibly email if we have to go to that point of forwarding that petition, which, I think honestly might just be nice to have to bring to them in the first place. But, if it has to get to that point, Principal Breedy, the current principal of RUHS, has come out to volunteer with the South Bay Parkland Conservancy, and his wife works, as a huge environmental activist. So I'm sure, he would be on board, and I know I work closely with the ASB and broadcast, so we could easily get a message up on there about this. So, I think the pieces are pretty much in place for if we need to get to the point of forwarding the petition to everyone.
Commissioner Ringel?
I was thinking, I think I agree with the idea of just meeting with RBEF, but it might be beneficial to go to that meeting with an actual statistic of this many students at Redondo Union oppose AES. So if we just went around asking people to sign, signing that they oppose the power plant, and then showed them hey, here's 1,000 kids who don't agree with this corporation that you're accepting money from, and that's why we wanted to talk. That's maybe more stronger than 5 or 10 of us sort of just going into the meeting. I don't know.
Commissioner Gray?
To kind of agree with Commissioner Ringel and Commissioner Lee Chang, maybe as a commission we can come together for the students who do go to RUHS. Maybe we can plan a meeting with the principal so that we can just set that up and maybe see how possibly if him and his wife might want to go to the RBEF meeting too. And along with the petition, again, we could use broadcasting, newspapers, just like overall petitions. And I really honestly think using SSH time, which is like 20 minutes to go to different classes and just talk about it, could really like home in the idea of us wanting to actually change it. So I feel like if we just like set that initiative, we could get a lot of people on board with it.
Commissioner Cherry?
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that everyone is saying. I think it's a good idea to have solid evidence for Redondo before coming into a meeting. But I think that doing that would be a good short-term victory. But also, I think after we do that, or, you know, to keep in the back of our minds, we should also be thinking long-term, because the power plant is being taken down in like 2 years in 2023. So we need to have like a way of keeping this power plant kind of like in the conversation at Redondo for the long term as well, so that we can actually make change when we have the opportunity.
Commissioner Opłatka?
Yeah, I just want to second what Commissioner Cherry and Commissioner Ringel just said. I think our best plan of action would be to have a meeting with the group of us, with RBEF, but also have that survey. I would be a little cautious about drafting up a whole petition right away, just because that's a lot of work and there's a lot of technicalities to drafting a petition. So I think a survey is a lot simpler, just, you know, showing support for, or support or against the Aes Power Plant's partnership with RBF is a little bit simpler for, you know, a short-term solution.
Adult Commissioner Stover?
It would also be helpful to know just how much money RBEF is getting from AES. That would be really a really key piece of information to have before meeting as well.
Okay, any other comments? Oh, Commissioner Ringel?
Is there any way like that, like us as a group will be able to communicate, either if it's through a group chat or something, so we don't have to like wait a month for us to like all, I don't know, like talk again? Because otherwise it's like I can talk to a few kids that I know at school or something like that, but it's hard for us to like be unified in discussion.
I do have to interject real quick, just so that you know, if this sounds like it's a great idea, everything you guys are discussing. I just want to tell you that as meeting as a group, as a commission, anytime that you guys meet as a commission, it needs to be, as if you meet as the Redondo Beach Youth Commission, you would have to advertise that, let everyone know that you guys were meeting. If you have a quorum, if you have less than a quorum to meet, you're fine. But it's the Brown Act prevents, or it makes it illegal for you guys to meet as a quorum to discuss commission business. Now, if it's not commission business, if this is something that you guys are doing as students, not as the Redondo Beach Youth Commission, then you guys can meet separately, or I mean, all you want, just as long as you don't label it as the Redondo Beach Youth Commission meeting. So if you guys want to meet as a group and get other kids involved, that's fine. But the Brown Act prevents us from meeting as the Redondo Beach Youth Commission and deciding and what to do and making or voting to do any kinds of taking any kinds of action. So if you guys want to do that as students, that's fine. Just don't meet as the Redondo Beach Youth Commission. If it's something separate you guys want to start, that's fantastic.
And I would just add to that, Luis, it's also, you can't have, the members of the commission cannot be having conversations with each other outside of commission meetings about commission business.
Correct.
Because that's called a chain meeting. That's also against the law under the Brown Act.
Commissioner Gray?
Two things. I know that Chairperson Schaefer can obtain all of our emails to kind of talk about it. So then at least we're in contact for it. But also I do have a question. If we do this as students and like we go to our BEF about it, could we say that we are commissioners, or would that like show that we're like talking about commissioner things? I'm asking Turtle this.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was that? Once again,
I was gonna say I have the answer to that one.
Go ahead, Drew. You can go ahead and answer that.
Yeah, so you can go wherever and say, I'm a member of the Redondo Beach Youth Commission, but you can't go without there being a vote taken of the commission at large in total during a meeting, during an open meeting where people can listen and have, express their opinion. You can't go and say, I am speaking on behalf of the commission. So you can go and just say, I'm a commissioner and this is what I personally think, but it's not what the commission's position is.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing, and also watch out with those emails, because just in the same, so that it's harder actually if you're having conversations for someone to come back and say, hey, the commission was having an illegal Brown Act violation chain meeting outside of a regularly agendized meeting. If you're just having conversations, someone would have to overhear it. But if you do it via email, it's perfect, because then you actually have a written document, all the emails of you violating the law. So that's not a good idea. So,
Commissioner Lee Chang?
So do we have any agreement on how we should meet to discuss this further? Because from what I'm getting, it's that we can't really do that without holding this meeting again sometime soon.
Well, you can't, like I stated earlier, you can meet with, as long as it's not commission business. If this is something that you guys want to take up separate from the commission, they do something independent of the commission. That's up to you guys, and you can do that as students, as at the school, or even after school, whatever. But again, it cannot be commission business. So you can't say, hey, everyone in the commission met last month and this is what we want to do. So if this is something you guys want to carry on at the school as students, that's fine, but you can't use this platform in order to move forward unless you, again, do it publicly.
So you could schedule, so we tried to do this before, didn't we? Where we tried to have a special meeting?
The special meeting is just that following week, just before the event that Michael Lee Chang was, or Commissioner Lee Chang was wanting us to discuss. There was commission meetings all that week, and we were unable to schedule it that week prior to the vote. So we weren't able to hold that special meeting. Now, if you guys want to have another meeting next month, the first Thursday of each month is definitely available. We are just mandated to have a meeting every other month. Now, if you guys would like to continue this conversation next month, we can definitely table this discussion and bring it up next month to further discuss this. And maybe you guys have some ideas, talk with your friends and get some different input. But again, as far as the commission goes, it has to be done in a public forum.
Commissioner Cherry?
Yes. So in order for us to, kind of communicate with each other, would it be okay for us to talk about commission business, but like have it public, like release it publicly, like as emails, or it doesn't have to be an official meeting? And if so, do people already watch our meetings? Like, are they being recorded? They're
being recorded. Yes,
okay.
They are being recorded. And sometimes people do watch this, just as sometimes people do watch council meetings also. Mm-hmm. So, but it also, again, I do want to remind you that if it's commission business, that if you guys want to take this on as a youth commission, then it needs to stay in this forum. And there's certain laws that keep us from going outside this forum to take action.
Okay.
It's not so much that it's recorded, it needs to have an agenda, and there needs to be minutes generated that are voted on.
Okay.
And it needs to be, we need to inform the public that we are having a meeting, so that if they want to attend or have a say, that's what we have this public participation item on the agendas. So that members of the community can give us their input or just say whatever's on their mind. So it has to be done in that manner. But again, like as I stated earlier, if it's if you guys want to do this as a commission, then you guys cannot go have discussions via email back and forth.
Okay.
But if you want to discuss this amongst yourselves, like if, for example, Commissioner Cherry, you want to talk to Commissioner Gray about it, that's fine.
Okay.
But it doesn't, but again, pass that on, that can't go on to, then pass it on to the next person like Adult Commissioner Gammon said, because then it becomes like a chain email, and then that becomes a violation of the Brown Act.
Okay, got it.
I have a question. If we were to get together as students and put together, say, a survey like Commissioner Oplaka mentioned, and then put the survey out to the school and then collected data on the interest from students on the power plant, would we be able to use that data as a commission?
You can, as students, you guys can do that. Not the whole commission, but if a few of you want to just come up with a survey to do that and take that around the school, you're taking initiative to do that as students. You're not doing it on behalf of the commission. Now, if you guys do get information and come up with some, the survey that you guys want to bring the information back, you can definitely present that at a meeting. But it cannot be done as commission business.
Right.
Okay.
Commissioner Oplaka?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we're all getting the same sense here, but it seems like this plan is not super simple, and it seems like the time frame of our meetings is a little bit short. So I would recommend that we do this not as a commission, because it seems like what we want to do takes a lot of time planning, and it seems like we want to have conversations to get started, and I think we want to expedite that as soon as possible. So I guess my recommendation would be, let's take this off as students, and I think the effectiveness would be just as effective to RBEF's view as if we were doing this as a youth commission.
Okay. Oh, Commissioner Ringel?
Yeah, sorry, one last question, because it can be an initiative like led by people who are youth commissioners without it having to be like an official youth commission initiative, right?
Correct. So for example, Ben, if you would like, Commissioner Ringel, if you take it upon yourself to have, you found out this information at our meeting, but if you take this information that you've learned here and then you do something separate from the commission without claiming that you're doing commission business, that you're not acting on behalf of the commission. If you want to start a group at school with your friends, and if there are commissioner members, that's fine, but we can't tout that as, or advertise that it's that this is going to help the youth commission. If it's something that you want to take upon yourself and take the initiative to start a group to discuss that and inform the youth, that's absolutely fine. Okay, I mean, I know this is like where you guys can get your start, but again, it cannot be considered commission business.
Adult Commissioner Benedict?
They could also do both, correct? Like they could start doing something on their own and then also do something with the youth commission as well. It doesn't have to be one or the other, correct?
Correct. But again, yeah, I stress that it doesn't just remain a youth commission group. It's like all the members in the youth commission. If that's all the members that there are, it could be in violation of the Brown Act if they bring it back to, because it could be seen as it was done outside of the public eye. Therefore, it would be a violation of the Brown Act. But if they do it as students, and then someone wants to bring the information to the youth commission, that's fine.
Commissioner Lee Chang?
Yeah, sorry. My apologies for keep bringing this up. I didn't get like a youth commission rule book that I could read over, but I was just that's the part that confused me, and what Commissioner the adult commissioner before me just asked. So if we go outside of this meeting and try to start something as students, then can we bring that back onto the youth commission to discuss it, or will that first act be viewed as if we
No,
were
that's
working
fine. If you take the initiative to start a youth group or a group of students and inform them of what's going on with the power plant, and then you guys as that independent group decide to take action, that's acceptable. Now, if whatever information you take from that group and you want to bring it back to the youth commission, that's also okay, because you're bringing information back. It's not that you guys formed a subcommittee of the youth commission and went out and did something. Okay, so if whatever information you gathered at this meeting prompts you to take action on your own, not as part of this youth commission, that's acceptable. But again, I don't want you guys to go out and say, hey, we're doing this for the youth commission and we're going to go council, because that is considered youth commission business, and any action or discussions like that need to take place in the public eye.
Adult Commissioner Stover.
So potentially they could gather some of this data and information from students at the school, bring this information that the small group has gathered from students to one of our meetings. And then as a commission, if from that point we wanted to draft an official youth commission statement on the AES plant, for example, and take a position as a commission in general, all of us together, that's something that could be done later, correct? As long as it was discussed at a meeting, say, hey, we've got this information from the students and here's the position, the official position that the youth commission is taking, and we can draft something up.
Correct, and we can then make a recommendation to city council, and then we can make a decision, again, in the public eye, in a public forum, where everyone can have some say or input in it, yes.
And that seems to me like that might be something down the road to have that official documentation to kind of keep the conversation going about this plant, moving forward, because, some of these young people are going to graduate and move away.
So. Yeah, I'm sure besides this group, the small group of students here, very few are aware of what's going on with the power plant. I mean, all this information, I learned a lot too tonight, so, and I'm excited for you guys that you guys are really pumped about doing something like this. I just had to warn you though about the potential of violating the Brown Act, which does state that commission business or any kind of public entity like ours needs to be done in a public forum. So there's no backroom deals or anything that's shady. So again, more power to you guys if you guys definitely want to get started or start something like that, because really information does give you, it empowers you to take action. But if we want to do something as a commission, we definitely have to do it in a meeting where the public can see us.
Yes, and thank you for informing us on that. I do have a question. How many commissioners will be able to be in this small group before it's considered a quorum?
So if we have 12 members, quorum is 7.
Okay, so maximum of 6 people?
Well, yes, but again, I don't want to encourage you guys to call it acting on youth commission under the youth commission umbrella.
Right,
I want to prefer to you guys to do it as Redondo Union High School students. That would be acceptable, and you can reach out to anyone. You could have as large a group there because it's not a government agency.
Okay. And then how would we, I'm trying to think of how we could put this group together. What's the interest level here in joining a small group to spearhead this survey? Commissioner Ringel?
I was just raising my hand to show that I'm interested. And me and Michael were saying possibly we can meet at lunch tomorrow, unofficially, not as a commission.
Right, the students. Okay, so now I don't know which hands are to speak and which are to Adult Commissioner Bubetichik.
I was just going to say that there's probably a procedure for creating a club at Redondo Union. I don't know what it is, but like I teach at Gardena High School, and I know that there's the vice principal who's in charge of the clubs. And when a new club wants to be formed, there's a form that they fill out and turn into the assistant principal. So there's probably a similar procedure. So that might be one way to make it clear that this is not commission business. You're creating a club on campus, and then all of you could join the club if you want to, or at least the ones that go to Redondo Union could join the club, and anybody else, any other students at Redondo Union could join this club if they were interested in this issue. And I think that would be a clear way to delineate commissioner business from this business of the club.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Right. Commissioner Cherry?
Yeah, I was just agreeing with that. I think we can just start up as a commission to know where, like, a small, not the commission, but, a small group of us, and then branch out as students at the school, because we need to have a starting point first.
And then Commissioner Oplaka?
Yeah, just to add on to that, this is an initiative, so I'm not sure what ASB's policy on that is in terms of initiative versus club, but I definitely have contacts tomorrow in ASB, and I can talk to them and see what their position on this is.
Okay. Any other further comments? Seeing none, so I'm hearing that we're meeting at lunch. Do we have a location?
No, I can suggest the library, or
I think that probably needs to be discussed offline.
Offline, yeah, because it's not me.
Otherwise it seems like it's commissioner business because you're discussing it at the commission meeting.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. So if that is all everyone has, Adult Commissioner Babanchik? Oh, no.
Sorry, that was on accident. Sorry.
Accident. Okay, it's okay. If that's all we have to say about the power plant, then I will move on. Member items and referrals to staff. Seeing none, moving on.
Well, hold on just a second. This is where you give everyone a chance to speak if they have any referrals or want to add or say anything before the meeting's over. And so, for example, if they want to suggest a topic for the next meeting, they can hear, or anything else that they may want to say right now.
Okay. Are there any member items or referrals to staff?
Are there any? If there are, just raise your hand or just go ahead and speak up. And then if no one does raise their hand now here, or then you can say seeing none, then you can move forward.
Right. Okay. Oh, yes, Commissioner, Adult Commissioner Stover.
Do we want to put something on the agenda for our next meeting to talk about if the commission wants to take an official position on the AES plant?
We could definitely continue this topic at the next meeting, because you see there's items continued from previous agendas that's on the list. That's something we could take up again for sure.
Okay. Any other referrals? Seeing none, moving on. And then finally, adjournment. The next meeting of the Redondo Beach Youth Commission will be a regular meeting to be held at 6:30 p.m. on February 3rd, 2022 in the Redondo Beach Council chambers. I believe that's incorrect. It will be on Zoom again.
It will be on Zoom up until there was a mandate that said the other meetings will be on Zoom for the year. But this is just a adjournment notice. But yeah.
Oh, so they'll all be on Zoom for the rest of
The remainder of this year, yes, until unless there's other new instructions. But this is just a standard adjournment notice that in case that the order is remanded or taken back, that we can meet in person. Okay.
Okay. Redondo Beach Council chambers at 415 Diamond Street, Redondo Beach, California, via teleconference.
Oh, so it does say via teleconference. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And then now you need a motion to adjourn.
Oh, sorry, one more time?
You need a motion to adjourn.
Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Blacka,
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gray. And then do we have to do a roll call?
Yeah, roll call vote. Oh, so we did have a few commissioners leave early. They had other issues, other things to take care of. So we'll start with Chairperson Schaefer.
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Gray.
Aye.
Commissioner Ablatka.
Aye.
Commissioner Lee Chang.
Oh, aye.
Commissioner Au.
Aye.
Commissioner Au. Okay, there you are. Commissioner Ringel.
Aye.
Commissioner Searing.
Aye.
Oh, you're muted. Okay. Commissioner Cherry.
Aye.
Commissioner Mazzano.
Aye.
Adult Member Gamet.
Aye.
Adult Commissioner Stover.
Aye.
And Adult Commissioner Bubenacek.
Aye.
Okay, motion is passed. And Ava, you can say the meeting is
All right.
adjourned now.
Meeting adjourned.
Okay, thank you all for participating tonight. It was a great discussion. And if I probably won't see you guys before the holidays, so I hope you guys all have a great holiday season. Be safe and please don't get sick.
He was.
All right, you guys take care, everyone.
Stay healthy.
All right. Bye. Good night.